Hey y'all, it's been a while. I'm Dave back, RH Maniac, Red Haired Maniac, right now pretty much no haired maniac. Um it's been an interesting time away. The game store which I talked about owning in prior videos is pretty much no more. There's some financial fallout from that, and I'm not real worried about that. That'll get worked out. In the long run, it'll take a while, but it'll get done. Um, my wife and I moved from our home of pretty much my life, in terms of town, to another state. In the process, we empty nested, and it's us and the dog, and excuse me, dogs, because there are two of them, in a brand new place in a state I never would have envisioned myself living in, because after the store closed, I was looking for a job, and she was looking for a better job, and we didn't necessarily want to stay in our hometown for a while because of some of the other fallout from the store. That was as much me, if not more me, than anything else. There were some things going on. I just didn't want to face people. And I'm not entirely certain I still do, but I figured I should at least make a video and let people know that, hey, I still exist. Basically, after the store, needed a job and cast applications out in several directions, and ended up taking a job a state over, about an hour and a half from where we were living, in another time zone, mind you, going from one Big Ten town to another. It's been interesting. Where we live is amazing. There's a river not too far away, and by not too far away, I mean the road we drive up to our house follows the river for a good 3 to 4 miles we drive it. Game-wise, the scene here is not sad. It's not what I'm used to, especially, being in a store, being kind of the center of attention. I guess I was kind of spoiled. It's very reminiscent of my time in college down in Southern Illinois University at Carbondale. The first time, 87, 88, when I went down there, the only games anyone was playing, at least in the local club and the local scene, were D&D and Marvel Superheroes, and I was not about either one of those at the time. I did eventually pick up in a D&D game with some friends, but that was only after I found some friends. Basically, it's like, I'm going to run Champions, and that's what I did. And through that, I built up my own little gaming group. And we did some other games besides Champions, so it was all fine, all good. But the scene here is very reminiscent of the same thing. There's a lot of D&D, there's a lot of Pathfinder. There's a small amount of Fate, but not much. And that's pretty much it. Miniatures-wise, I like to play a lot of War Machine. There's no one here playing War Machine. I can play 40k players for days. I don't want to put my foot back in that water again. I really don't. Magic's always something I can pick up. Not my favorite thing, but it is a way to get out and meet people, and I've done that a few times. Beyond that, work is good. It's hard, it's physical, but it's stress I can leave at work, which is something that with the store, I'd work 8, 10, 12 hours at the store, and then come home and think about the store when I was at home. And it was, it got to the point where I was having health issues. And after 8 years, 6 years it was great. Year 6 to 7 I started having health issues, and there were some other things going on that caused me to rethink some priorities. And I probably should have shut it at the end of year 7. I kept it open a year longer, thinking I could, I don't want to say salvage it, but bring it back to what it, closer to what it was. And that was my own fault, because the things that had caused it to go down prior weren't entirely solved, and so I could not devote the time I needed to. And at the same time, I was realizing that I had spent pretty much 8 years being Dave the store owner, Dave the businessman, as priority number one, and not being Dave the husband, or Dave the father, or Dave the friend. And that was kind of a cold, sobering thing to finally realize that I had, with my son our son worked with us for a while, worked with me for a while, so I got to see him kind of grow up and become a fairly good young man. He had a few issues, but nothing major. But our second child, I missed pretty much their entire teenage years. And that kind of hurt, because I realized that was my fault. I didn't make that the priority I should have. We have a good relationship, and love him to pieces. Wow. Looking at this webcam is like how asymmetrical my face is. It's like, never mind the eyes being kind of crinkled up right now because I'm just looking funny, but my nose is kind of off center. Or I'm just not facing the camera center. I don't know. I go this way. Meh. Hey. Of course, there's always this camera software I can play with too to kind of recenter things or put me back closer to where I should be. Ha. Center stage. It's my channel. Fuck it. Beyond that, we moved pretty much in May. It is late August now. I'm just now unpacking some boxes because I had some things going on. We had moved, but I had not really let go of my hometown and embraced where we are for what it is. And it's a cool town. It's got a lot going for it. I need to find some more of it. Game-wise, I'm in a D&D 5th game, which just started. Literally, we've had one run. We'll have another one tomorrow. I will say I'm the oldest person in the room by a fair margin. I think I am 20 years older, at least 20 years older than any other player in the room, let alone the GM. But that's okay. Not really worried about it. And things seem to be going okay, and they're a good group of people. Younger, definitely closer to millennials, so I don't quite identify with them as much as I could. But I think it'll be fun. I'm toying with a couple things. I'd like to get some stuff published finally, if I can find time and rhythm to actually do some writing. I've spent more time with my wife in the last 4 months than I had in the last 4 years, and it's been amazing. Kind of wish my kids were here so I could spend more time with them, but I understand they do not leave, which is effectively their hometown. They have jobs and they have friends and they have their support networks there, and I get that. Let's see. Comics. I pretty much had to stop collecting comics because of the move. Between the financial aspects, the fact my comic store pretty much went out of business about the same time my store did, and I'm so far behind I don't really want to feel like I want to go back and try to pick up on some of the stuff. And a lot of what I was reading because I liked comics, but not necessarily because the stories were fantastic. There were some things I do miss. I do miss Alters. Again, Aftershock has a hit there. And if people would just pay attention to it, it's a fantastic book. Cannot recommend it enough. Cannot recommend it enough. Good news in comics is that apparently Milestone's coming back. For those of you who don't know Milestone or might know Milestone Media from Cursory Thing, if you've ever seen the cartoon Static Shock or heard of Static the character in some of the Justice League animated stuff, he was originally a character for what was known as Milestone Media, which was an independent imprint that was produced and distributed by DC through a licensing basis. Dwayne McDuffie, who I believe has since passed, and a number of other people, Mark Waid, I believe Mark Waid, there are other comics people who know this than me, but a number of people were involved, minority involved creators were involved in making this happen. And there were some hits and there were some misses. Static was amazing characters. Icon was also very good. Blood Syndicate had its pros and cons. It was not the book for me, but I know other people who really enjoyed it. Same with Hardware. There was another cool book in there called Zombie with an X, Xombi. That was a surreal trip, and God, I hope we get more of that, because that was an amazingly cool book for what it was. But, you know, that's the comics news I've been keeping up on. Game news, Gen Con, the 50th Gen Con just happened this past weekend. Apparently, roughly 75,000 people attended. I did not go, because I probably would have murdered people at this point in time. I went in 2012, where there was about 41 to 45,000 people, and it was the space wasn't big enough for them at the time. Now they've since annexed the football stadium in downtown Indianapolis, so supposedly that could hold another 30,000 people or so. I'm not buying it. Just not thrilled. And too many people. So a lot of the focus is going away from the gaming, and it's going, from what I've seen, going more toward some of the other nerdy stuff. You know, nothing wrong with that. The cosplay and some of the live action stuff and whatever. But a lot of the tabletop gaming, there's a lot of it going on, but there's a lot of it that wasn't. Board games are huge still, although the board game market, from what I see, still tends to be very volatile with the advent of the Kickstarter. Everything's getting kickstarted. The role-playing market is getting that same way. Pinnacle, I don't think, does anything without kickstarting it first, but they have a proven track record. They can get it done. Other companies are doing it. Wizards of the Coast obviously isn't. They don't have to. They're, one, backed by Hasbro, and two, they make magic. They print money with every set. The one RPG news that came out that was kind of nice was that, one, there's going to be a 5th edition of Vampire. Again, not my game, but the fact that it's still going and there's going to be a new edition. Mark Reinhagen, the guy who originally created it, is going to be back on the design team at least for, who knows how long. And they have promised that this one will be available through distributors and thus available in stores. So maybe the people who want to get their Cavalry and Sabat on can actually get their books, as opposed to having to hawk Kickstarter pages and fund them and hope, because when you go exclusively Kickstarter as a role-playing company, you don't grow your base. You maintain it, and it dwindles, because the people that your fans may find to drag into the game, they can't get books. It wasn't happening. I know they hooked up with Indie Press Revolution for a time to do some fulfillment. That was far too little too late. They had promised us a retailer beta 2008 or so, and nothing came of it. So where they're at's where they're at. But the fact of the matter is they're coming back. Another thing that's coming back is, it was sold by Alderac, who decided to concentrate pretty much primarily on board games and board games only. So they sold off their last remaining CCG property and RPG property in Legend of the Five Rings to Fantasy Flight, who, of course, ended the CCG, and they're turning it into an LCG, living card game. If you know the difference between those, great. If you don't, quick explanation. Difference between a collectible card game and a living card game. A collectible card game, like Magic, new sets, or Pokemon, new sets come out. There's X number of cards in the set. Packs are random. You'll get like a rare, or a few uncommons, and some commons. in like Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon's cases, you know, super rare, ultra rare, hyper rare, whatever, depending on how all that folding works. The living card game is different in that you'll buy a core set, and every core set will be the same cards in the core set. Gives you a basis to make decks and you start playing the game and learn the mechanics of the game. Then they come out with what they call chapter packs. Netrunner calls them data packs. Game of Thrones is chapter packs. I believe Star Wars LCG is like force packs. Basically, it's a pack of cards that come out about once a month. It adds 20 new cards in the mix. In LCG format, you can have three copies of a single card in a deck. Well, what happens is they will sell you 60 cards. It will be 20 new cards, 3 copies of each, done. Each copy of this chapter pack will be the same as every other copy of this chapter pack. Everyone has access to the same cards. There is no rarity. There's no hunting outside of promos and special things, which Fantasy Flight will do promotional cards for it. They won't do new cards. They'll just do altered artwork, some cool artwork stuff for it, and that's usually available in some of the game day packs and the store championship packs and stuff like that. And some of that can get some value to it. But they're going to do Legends of the Five Rings like that. They're also stripping the core mechanics out of their Star Wars, very successful Star Wars game, the narrative game with the funky dice. And I think they're going to genericize that and put that out. I forget what they're going to call it. They're calling it something. But I also suspect that they're going to do an L5R game, RPG, using that same system. Just makes sense. I mean, you create a house system, it seems to work. Don't pull old early TSR and just make system after system after system that, you know, everyone has to learn. Eventually everyone got on the same page. It's like, you know, Steve Jackson has GURPS, that's their house system. Pinnacle has Savage Worlds, that's their house system. Hero Games has Hero System, that's their house system. Mighty Cook has, I believe, what's called the Cypher System. Margaret Weiss had the Cortex system for a while, but I think Margaret Weiss has pretty much shut down most production. The Cortex stuff is being handled by a third party that they license it to. West End had D6. Game Designers Workshop eventually had a house system that I don't know if it ever had a name. Some people really, really liked it. I found it horribly clunky. But again, personal preference. Some of the things it did really well, if you got into, like, for example, Twilight 2000, if you got into like a brawl in Afghanistan, a firefight over sandy ridges, their system worked really well. Dark Conspiracy didn't work so well for. Monster hunting in an X-Files-esque situation. Dark Conspiracy, X-Files minus the government thing. It was basically Supernatural well before Supernatural, and the monsters were less classic. Less vampires, less werewolves. There was a lot more Fae and She. There was a lot more Cthulhu-esque stuff in that. But I think the telling thing about Dark Conspiracy First Edition was I was in a game at a convention that was being run by the guy who wrote the game, Lester Smith. And he didn't know the rules of the game because he'd submitted a game. Game Designers Workshop said, yeah, we'll use that, and they ripped out all his mechanics and shoved theirs in. And he didn't actually know the rules to that. He knew the setting inside and out because he wrote it. But anyway, I'm babbling. This is kind of a status update of gaming in general in the world. My status update: hey, I'm still alive. I'm still doing stuff. And if I seem kind of washed out, the new office and the new bedroom, the lighting's different. I've kind of made myself a little cubby hole. There's a shelf behind me. There is a shelf to the back over my back right shoulder. There's also 2 shelves pretty much directly to either side of me, so there's a little cubby hole thing going on. It kind of kills the natural lighting, so to add some lighting here, I put a fluorescent bar, and that's kind of right here, and it's really the only place I can put it. And if I turn off the light, turn off the fluorescent, then we get this. Maybe a little easier to look at, but then this kind of puts me half in shadow with the light coming up here. And I'm like, meh. Not really working. So we'll turn that back on. Neat. I just flared out the camera. It's awesome. Wow, I'm just looking at the countdown. I've talked for 20 minutes already. It's been a while. I guess I've owed you guys more than a little bit of an update. Beyond that, things are good. Health-wise, I'm doing okay. I've lost some weight. Back down to about 300 after going from 350 to 275 back to 335. I'm down around 300. I had some stress-related psoriasis happening because of stuff with the store. That's pretty much gone. It's gone from being very, very prevalent and thick on like my elbows and knees to being almost nowhere but my elbows and knees and much thinner. So I never would have believed stress could kill to that regard, but after seeing what happened in my body once the stress of running the store was off of me, yeah, be safe, guys. Don't overwork yourselves. I can't tell you enough. Cannot stress enough, and I hate to use that word given what I'm talking about. Don't put too much upon yourself, especially expectation-wise. It's just going to put you in the hospital, if not put you in the grave. It almost put me in the grave. I had a heart attack I didn't know I had. Yay, thumbs up, monkey. But I'm still kicking. I've gone back to food, just what I knew for 20 years prior to being a retailer. I like it. And the situation I'm in currently is actually really, really good. I take care of some really cool people. I'm not going to go too deep into it because of things I had to sign. But basically, it's a joy going to work every day. It's, there's some situations that can be stressful, like someone doesn't come in, or situation happens at one of the satellite kitchens and it has to be solved, and we're scrambling for personnel. That's okay. I can live with that. Because at the end of the day, that stress is done. We don't have to worry about it. We just have to worry about the next day when we get there. As long as the prep's done from the day before, it's all solid, it's all good. I kind of miss working food just for that reason. Beyond that, I think that's all I've got to say for right now. I'm going on not quite 25 minutes. And, again, just a general update. I still exist. I want to get back to doing these. That's part of the reason why I haven't been doing these, other than dealing with stuff at the store and it closing and us moving and whatnot, is I'm just now, after being here for May, June, July, August, roughly 4 months, I'm just now really unpacking the stuff. There's not much on the shelves behind me right now. It's currently at least out of boxes on the floor behind me and to my left. You can't see it. I'm not going to move the camera because it took me forever to get positioned to where I wanted it. But there's piles of RPG books over there. I've got miniatures books and whatnot on a different pile. It'll have a different shelf because I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shelves in here. And by the time I'm done, most of them will be filled. I'm also using some 2x4s, or 2x6s in this case. No, excuse me, 6-foot 2x4s. 6 foot? 6 foot 2x4s to make 2 secondary shelves above the laptop that I'm recording this on. Made 2 of them that stretch across the shelves immediately to my left and right to get more space. And it's going to look okay. It's going to look good. We have more space than we'd had at the old house. and we have fewer people living here, so that's worked out to be weirder. If I haven't said I miss my kids yet, I do miss my kids. One of them was already out of the house, but one of them was still there, and I miss them on a regular basis. But the dogs are here. They don't have a fence in the yard, so we can't just let them out. But they're well trained enough that they don't necessarily go running off. So as long as we're out there, they'll hang with us and stick around us, and they get to kind of run and roam and do whatever, and it's been good for them. The fact that they have more space in the house means that they're less tense with each other, because we have an older dog and a younger dog, and the younger dog is just, she's, I want to say, a little idiot, because I've seen this dog do vector calculus on the fly. But she's very energetic, and she wants to play, and the other dog's 11 years old, and like, I'm done, I'm just going to lay here, bitch. Leave me alone. He doesn't snap at her, but he does growl, and he does bark, and he's just a mellow dude, and she isn't. It makes for some interesting interactions at times, because she'll do something just dumb, and he'll just look at her, and then look at me like, Dad, do you see what she's doing? Because that dog ate wall candy, right? Just gives me this look like, what's wrong with her, Dad? Oh, I'm definitely babbling at this point. Getting a little tired. It's 10 o'clock here, which is no big deal. Supposed to have tomorrow off, but I got called in. Got a call earlier today asking me to come in for a few hours. And it's going to be all overtime, so time and a half. Not too shabby. I'll go make some money. I don't mind that at all. It's been a while having to make regular payments on so many things, but I'm also making regular payments on half as much. Not paying for a store and a house, just paying for a house. I've got some debts I need to help take care of, but that's all slowly getting settled. Trying to think. I'm paying more for this house than I did the one in Illinois, but we cut the cord on cable, so we're paying half for cable. We have well water, not sewer water, so we're actually paying nothing for water at this point. Our power bill's half of what it was, and yet we run the air conditioner more here than we ever did in Illinois. It's not even close. Trash is much cheaper here, and landlord mows. We don't have to do it. I'm okay with that. In general, the situation, while I'm paying more for the house, is I'm getting more value out of it, and I'm getting a bigger house. I'm not in town per se, but I'm not really out of town either. I'm very much at the very edge of town. There's a little enclave. I'm one of 3 houses that are completed and being lived in. There's a 4th house that's currently like a manufactured home that's currently being in the early stages of being put together, that will be part of the enclave, and they're talking about doing a 5th one, and that's fine, but it's literally going to be these little 5 houses. Wow. 5 houses in this little wooded enclave. Highway's like a mile and a half north of us. Town's like 4 miles south of us. It's not a bad situation to be in. Actually kind of okay. Anyway, do what you can to take care of yourselves, folks. I will be back later. I don't know exactly when, because I need to get back on track with music, if nothing else. Getting music and whatnot. Some reviews going on. The comic reviews are going to stop because I'm not collecting anymore. Game reviews. I I don't know what's going to happen with the game reviews right now. I'm not necessarily buying a whole lot of games, mostly because there's not a whole lot coming out that's really just tripping my trigger. I will probably buy the L5 RPG when it comes out, but I have no interest in the LCG. Savage Worlds right now is not doing anything that's really thrilling me. Fate. I like Fate. I hate Fate. I like a little more crunch to my games. Hero games is pretty much dead. D&D is high fantasy, which has its place, but it's not really my bag. It's not really my cup of tea. Hey, let's play with this some more. Writing my own stuff again. I don't know when it's going to be done. I'm in very early preliminary stages of it. And while I'm starting to get tired, I'm starting to slur hard. Anyone who's played my Tyrus games knows pretty much the engine I'm using at. I stripped the engine out and did some other games with it a year ago, and those seemed to go okay. I did an entirely new engine for the local convention this past January, which has promise, and it's scalable, kind of like Tristat X was. If you remember Guardians of Order, Big Eye, Small Mouth, Silver Age Sentinel, stuff like that. It's scalable in that way with dice types. But that was literally originally going to be an all D12 engine, and I banged my head against the decks for months just trying to make it work. And I still think I can, just not with what I was doing, so I stripped it back and made it scalable, and it worked fairly well, but it's not a direction I want to pursue just yet. I might pursue it in the future. But right now I'm going to take the old, it's called Dice Bag, as opposed to the other one's Dice Pool X. Dice Pool X. Wow, I can talk. I'm going to take the Dice Bag engine, I'm going to make it better. I will probably have alpha documents here, I'd like to say by the end of the year. But that's being optimistic considering how much time I'm not getting to do anything, because work has been kicking my ass. 50 hours a week on average, sometimes as much as 65. It's calmed down a little bit since we've gotten better staff, but when I first got here, it was not uncalled for me to work 120 hours in a pay period. And those were nice checks, but my body was not ready for it. I hurt like a bitch. You know, enjoy your youth while you're young, kids, because that shit goes away. Everything starts to hurt. Things that you should... Walking hurts. Okay? Walking hurts. That was the other nifty thing because of this job. I thought I developed a stress fracture in one of my feet. No, it turns out something called a Morton's neuroma. It's not an actual broken bone. It just mimics the pain of a broken bone. Lovely. I'm a 300-pound guy. You think I need to be walking on a bum wheel? But it's getting better slowly. I have good days, I have bad days with it. And again, I'm babbling, and now I'm trying to make people feel sorry for me, and that's bad. So, hey, long update. I exist. I'll be back in the future. The shelves behind me will be a lot more filled next time, probably within the next couple of videos, because I need to pick shit up off the floor if nothing else. So, signing off. You guys take care of yourselves. Be good to each other. Be good to yourselves. Remember, you matter. You count. And don't forget the people around you. Girlfriends, parents, loved ones, the whole nine. Because they're not going to be around forever, and you're not going to be around forever. Work can take a back seat. Being your own boss is great, but only if it doesn't cause you to sacrifice things that should be more important in life. I made that mistake. Never again. Take care, folks.